This one's got that real je ne sais quoi, huh? Yeah. Fancy French. ARKHON INFAUSTUS. Roll me.
Say my name.
Jam, but
We just become best friends. Yup.
I love the poorly educated.
You know what we gotta do, alright? We gotta shake on it. Put her there, pal. Hi diddly hey. Neighborino. You got Jim. Well, you got Jim and Phil. And we got the tier list. And yeah, I'm bleeding out of the side of my nose for a change because it switched things up from bleeding out of my nose after a just saying. ARKHON INFAUSTUS. This is a band I do not hear enough about whatsoever. Like I don't hear anything about them, and I'd be like, that's wrong. More people should be talking about this band. And this is one of a few examples where I'd be like, I legit just don't even understand, right? But let's get to this. It's a tidy discography. We could do this like we could do Angel Corpse. Just stay out in the A section all the way. But with Angel Corpse, I'd just be like, they're all S tier, we're done here. So, this is a band from France, and it's not really like a proper black metal band. It's more, I suppose, of a death metal band, and maybe that's the thing. It's like, because death metal, like French, just it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But I think a lot of the black metal guys actually know this band better than the death metal guys, and I should probably be corrected. To begin with, let's start with their first album, Hell Injection. This one is distinctly more like death metal than black metal, right? In just pretty much every way. But more than that, it's just, well, I slot it with the black metal shit in my collection just because this album is such a concentrated dose of wrong. Everything about this is just smeared in pitch black. What it's just a furious energy of inversion, and it almost defies description. I would recommend, in the absence of being able to search out the band photo shoots they did for this album, which in and of themselves is pretty messed up stuff. Consider looking up the lyrics for the song "A Brethren of the Flesh" and just extrapolate from there. So imagine it to Motorhead, except take the Motorhead. If Motorhead is a nice tasty glass of milk, and then you pee in the milk, and then you set it in the sun, and then you come back in as many days as it takes for the glass of milk to actively be screaming Satan at you. And that's kind of what this album is like. I would love to say this is a pure S tier piece, but I'm gonna level this at A tier. It is an astonishingly good debut and an astonishingly bilious and vile just piece of music and of art overall. I'm gonna go ahead and say, if your kids are watching the screen right now, maybe cover their eyes really quick, and then Phil, bring up the cover and just look at this. Imagine how dedicated to perversity you have to be to have actually just sat around and thought of this. Huh? That's a really good vibe. A tier work. The next album, Filth Catalyst. This one is a little harder for me to judge as a full physical product because this is the one that I actually have never owned a copy of. But to judge from the albums immediately preceding and succeeding it, I would have to assume that, and let me extrapolate from the album cover here, that they probably fulfilled in terms of presentation, just bringing in some extra levels of wrongness into that that, inner presentation. The music. This is a real jump off from the last one. It's really where the band starts to develop a sound of their own. And I'm not actually certain, having listened to it a whole bunch, I still can't tell if the dude with the hair has yet joined in. It kind of doesn't quite sound like it. But it's really hard to tell with this band. Like, everything is very low information because no one talks about them, and everything is kind of like hard to discern in the music because they switched drummers somewhere along the way. The drummer from the first album did not maintain through to the third album, and I can't tell with this one either. I feel like it's the newer drummer, but again, it's kind of just such a muddling like mess of wrong that all you can really do is be overwhelmed by it. This one I am going to put as a B tier album. The music is, I think, near equally worthy, and there's parts where I'd be like, man, they almost never top this for the groove. The first one is like more song oriented, and the second one really kicks off with how it just kind of develops into more of a sheer whole of mess of sound. But the second one is by far the most groove focused to my ear, which is not why I put it at the B tier. I just feel like this is probably like the least representative of what you're really gonna expect out of this band as an aggregate, right? We move on to Perdition Insanabilis. This one I gotta put up at A tier again. And I think honestly, like, for sheer accessibility and just enjoyment, I probably do like Filth Catalyst more than this one. But this one is... So there's a song on it called Whirlwind Journey, and I feel like that could easily have also been the parenthetical title of the album, because that's kind of what it sounds like. At this point, the guy with the hair is distinctly in the band. They've got the PVC suits on by this point, and it's a very horrific sounding piece of music. Very anguished. I feel like just insanity and anguish and whatever wrong emotions are kind of just the central focus at this point. The artwork on this one exceeds, I feel like, even the quality of the album. If you can dig up a physical copy of this, it is worth just for the sheer album cover. There's that PVC picture, but it's mostly just like pictures of doors, and it's disturbing. Kind of like the Orchestus album, with what had to use pictures of, a lot of casualty scenes to evoke the same effect. And then the way that they print the lyrics is just particularly disorienting. I feel like they take alternating lines from songs, they just splice them in between each other. But also the songs, the lyrics, the whole quality of the thing. It's a very disorienting and unsettling piece of art. And again, I recommend. The album itself is pretty messed up sorts of music, but as a piece of packaging, like, this really is just maybe the peak of what they have achieved yet, right? Now, with that said, the final one that we're going to do, because I do feel like the chemistry in this band, especially having heard the last EP, I think the real chemistry of the band is all just between DK Deviant and 666 Torture, two guys just equally dedicated to utter perversion, right? This last album, Orthodoxin, this was when I first, in fact, became fully aware of the band. Like, I read about him in Zero Tolerance. The guy was just raging in the interview. Apparently, as per their telling, they had to re-record the album 10 times, and whether or not that was the factor, this one is So I announced the first one as like a central focus being just songs, but smeared, maybe. And then the second one, like a smeared whole of an album with a focus more kind of on groove. And then a third one with a focus more on just like anguish and emotion. And this last one is just this simmering trawl through sheer hell. Absolute S-tier album. Just unquestionable. I'd be like, you know what? The first thing that you should be doing with your YouTube after this video, in fact, is looking up ARKHON INFAUSTUS. Orthodoxin. Like orthodoxy with an N at the end for no reason. And just see if I'm wrong. It is a compellingly, furiously just doomed out piece of very angry, bitter music. And I highly recommend. And yeah, look at that. So they balanced it nicely, and I'd be like, this is a band that I absolutely love. This is for me one of my top bands, and I got people that back me up. I mean, well, she's French, so just anytime I tell her like, yeah, this band's French, she's like, oh, sweet. But I got one person on board who barely even, kind of poser, in fact. So you shouldn't be beaten by posers just with emotional attachments to, countries that no one really gives an F about, right? Check out this band. And be sure to come back in the comments and thank Jim for it, right? But, yeah, what is that? We're done here, alright? Cool. ARKHON INFAUSTUS. Jim Dempsey out. We'll catch you on the next one.